what's next. Check the progress, check the progress, check the progress. Feeding off the success.
Already there, ladies and gentlemen, your nighttime, right time DJ music. Let me throw this up on my head here correctly so I don't get too much of a feedback. How we doing this evening? Welcome to another episode of the Chop Shop here, folks. Got a few things I'm going to cover with you today. Well, I should say tonight. Give a few folks a few minutes to start coming on in. Hot off the presses, some shit. Y'all, excuse me, I should have waited a few minutes. I should have took my cue from Kwame Brown when he said wait at least 2 minutes before you start using superlatives. So I'll just wait a few more. How's everybody doing? Come on in, take your seat, sit on down. Yep, got some stuff I'm gonna cover today, folks. Some of it is funny and some of it is just downright, as I usually say, tragic. We're gonna start it off with of course, we all know who dare I say the name, Candace Owens is. She said, this lady, this black woman, said that black people murder more people than anyone else on this planet. And folks, I gotta say, I gotta ask, where does she get that from? Well, you're going to see that I'm not one of these Rhodes scholars or one of these facts and figures kind of guys, so it doesn't take me long to go and debunk. Hey, Neek, how you doing? Welcome. It doesn't take me long to go in and pull up some stuff on YouTube or Google it and debunk exactly what she's saying. So I got to ask myself, how does a network that called himself a news organization, i.e. Fox News, allow Candace Owens to get on TV, national TV, and say the things that she say? It's not done on accident. They need a mammy. They need someone to further their message. They need a blackface. What do you call those back in the day? What am I talking about? The minstrel show. They need one of those clowns in blackface, but you got to be official. So they chose Candace Owens, and she lives up to the billing every time she goes and sit down with Tucker Carlson. So much so, folks, she said black people murder more than white folks. That black people, basically what she was saying, that black people are more inherently subjugated to kill than any other race in the United States. And you'll hear her say that for yourself, and she says it with a straight face. We're going to talk about Candace Owens, and also we're going to talk a little bit about, today I was in a stream earlier. I was listening to a stream. Big shout out to Bomb Cherry and all you folks over there. Thank you for having me up on your stream a little bit. We got into a little, I would say a little conversation about Oprah Winfrey. And again, as I said on that panel earlier, I'm not taking anything away from the achievements of Oprah Winfrey. Not in the least bit. Am I shooting shade at her? I'm just saying, when I was on the panel earlier, if you're going to report the news, Oprah, if you say you are dedicated to a cause, make sure that when you talk about this dedicated cause of young women getting exploited by these old Hollywood folks, i.e. R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, make sure you report it across the board. What I was saying on the panel was Harvey Weinstein was accused of the very same things that R. Kelly was. But Oprah, you didn't have one special. That's all I was talking about. I wasn't up on this panel trying to discourage or disparage or throw shade at Oprah. And I was just speaking mere facts. We're gonna have a few folks to back up my claims. I like doing that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I just gotta. When I say something, I like to go back and make sure I do my homework and do my due diligence. So someone might come back and say, "Well, you was on Bomb Cherry's panel and you said this." What do you mean? Okay, I'll show you. It's easy to do it here than to ask Bomb to pull this up or pull that up. So I figure it's best to do it here. So we'll get right to that here in just a second, and then we'll start things off here. We might as well go ahead and get into it now. Here it is, folks. Candace Owens on Fox News, along with Tucker Carlson. Y'all check this shit out.
Candace Owens may know the answer. She's the host of Candace. She joins us today. Candace, thanks so much.
The two biggest had to do with three white people. Didn't matter. They extracted a racial narrative for that case. Here you have a man who was pointedly telling us this because it just goes completely against their narrative. The facts of this case goes against their narrative. They are so race obsessed. And one thing I always say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when perpetrator is a black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country.
No, that's not obvious, and she's absolutely wrong with that. And a little bit later on, I'll bring out facts and figures from prominent websites to show you that what she just said was an absolute farce. Not true. By far, white people commit more crimes in the United States. White people. And that's a fact. And I'll show you the numbers here in a little bit.
Given the fact that black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate. Now, what's interesting here is that the two biggest race cases of the last 2 years, arguably George Floyd and Kyle Rittenhouse, never actually produced a single...
No, the two biggest race cases in the last couple of months was undoubtedly George Floyd for one. Also, Ahmaud Arbery. But I noticed that Fox News can't report on that because there's no defense for what these three rednecks did to this young black kid. They were found guilty on all charges. So Fox, there's no need for them to report on that. So how can they report on that? Why isn't Candace Owens talking about that? The same thing they did with way back when Michael Dukakis was running for president against one of the Bushes, I believe. And right at this time, there was a black man that had murdered somebody. And at this time, they were letting people out on early releases because of overcrowded population. So in this particular case, this particular murderer was released, and he did another crime. But because they was, at this point in time, the Republican Party was so hell-bent on crime prevention, they used this black man, just like what Candace Owens just did in Fox News, by putting this picture of this deranged man that drove his car through people and killed them. They're trying to equate that to black people killing more people on the United States than any other ethnic group. I agree with one thing Candace says, that this man should have not been out of jail. It was only a couple weeks after he had been released from jail that he ended up killing and running over these people. Running over and killing 3 people. All because he was running from a domestic situation. It had nothing to do with him being radicalized. Had nothing to do with color. He didn't say that. Y'all went to his Facebook post, and because he was I'll say anti-white, anti-oppression, anti-this, he was radicalized. Well, if you go on if you go on my page, you might say I'm radicalized because I speak on issues, good and bad black issues. I try to be as fair and as unbiased as I can, but this is not. This is what Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Fox News is allowing her to say is absolute lies. Why is she not held accountable for this? Let's continue.
Piece of evidence pointing to race, right? George Floyd. Derek Chauvin never used racial language or racial slurs against George Floyd during that arrest. Didn't matter. It became the biggest race case in America. Kyle Rittenhouse. That case had to do with 3 white people. Didn't matter. They extracted a racial narrative for that case. Here you have a man who was pointedly talking about white people all across social media, sometimes genocidal, by the way. He was sharing posts from Zimbabwe, news sources talking about the disappearance of white people in the country in the next 5 years as if it was a good thing, talking about how black people needed to raise up violently against black people. Multiple posts pointing to the fact that this man hated white people. He was anti-white, he was a racist, he was a black nationalist, and that's exactly why the media does not want to talk about this case. They also don't want to talk about this case, Tucker, because it goes against their criminal justice reform, right? And we're just going to let these criminals out over and over and over again. This man should have been in prison, mostly because, for tons of reasons, he has a 50-page long rap sheet, but particularly because the week before, he drove another accident with that same van, another accident, into the mother of his child. I mean, he was a violent criminal who was allowed onto the streets because leftists and progressives keep wanting district attorneys to release black criminals so that it looks good when you look inside in the prisons.
Let me just go ahead and comment on that. To say that you're going to release black criminals because it looks good for who? Because when you lease black criminals, 9 times out of 10, they do not go into white neighborhoods. They go back into the neighborhoods that they came from. So if it's true, Candace, they're releasing these black criminals back into black neighborhoods. That is fact. That is absolute fact. Let a black child molester try and move within 5 miles of a school. Not gonna happen. And to say that this man was radicalized, how is it when, you know, when some people in white America do this, when we see the Klan and everything, they're mental patients. They had some issues. This man obviously had issues. And he should, again, I'll agree with you with this. With his rap sheet, he should have never been out of jail. If it not but this failed criminal justice system that we are talking about, that the failure leans into us being in jail more. Is there people like this that need to be in jail? You damn Skippy. But that's not what we're talking about here. You're trying to make this isolated incident to black America killing white folks. And that's dangerous. And I'm going to show you that a little bit later on. Why your rhetoric could cause white America to get in an uproar and go clean out of town long before Tulsa, Oklahoma. Y'all pay attention, keep listening.
So they're implicated in this. I mean, basically, if you examined this honestly, you'd have to examine the things that you're trying to impose on the country and admit maybe they're not working, and they're not willing to do that.
They're not willing to do that. And beyond that, let's be very clear, like Daryl E. Brooks was radicalized by the progressive agenda. He was radicalized by the Black Lives Matter narrative. His postings show you that. He believes in the narrative that police are out to hunt black men, that we have to raise up against white people and fight for our place in this country. He's learning that from the politicians, the left-wing politicians, the left-wing media sources that have been forcing this narrative down the throats of not just the adults, but the children in the school system. So yes, he was...
Again, is what you just said. Why would you not think that we as black Americans have not been having to fight for our place in this country since its inception? How do you try and negate that, Candace? With one bad apple. Yeah, this man should be in jail, but how do you say what you say out of the mouth when you look in the mirror in the morning and you see blacks that radicalized? You're the one that's radicalized to believe this. This is the purest form of self-hate that I've seen from anybody in the media. You almost got Larry Elders beat. Radicalized for speaking up on issues that affect black America, messed up issues. And you're radicalized because you want freedom of speech. fair housing, and all these other things that, you know, white America it comes easy for a lot of them. Not to say all of them. Come on with it.
Radicalized by leftist propaganda.
Before I go any further. Hey, Sac Passe and Kylie Jane, how y'all folks doing? Appreciate y'all dropping through. Thank you very much. Now, remember, Candace Owens said that folks was radicalized, right? And she says that white America is under attack by black America. Well, let's see who's really under attack. Now, when I freeze this footage, folks, or as you're looking at this footage, how many black folks you see in this crowd fighting? I didn't see any. But I digress. Oops, shouldn't have used that word.
There's Lee right there.
Who's being radicalized? From that footage, if you don't know, what you just witnessed was back in 2018. This is the beginning of the Charlottesville, West Virginia, where a young white lady by the name of Heather Heyer was struck by a car by a white supremacist. These folks were there. All that chaos and ruckus that you saw just now on the screen, those folks were there in direct protest of the removal of Robert E. Lee, a statue. Somebody who lost, who tried to fight against the United States of America, tried to succeed from the Union, that fought to keep slavery. That's what this fight was about. Did you see any black folks in there? Let's check this next clip.
And the male driver is in custody with charges pending. We are currently treating this as a criminal homicide investigation.
Okay, folks, after this young man was taken into custody, and they went on to his Facebook page and his post, he was a devout white supremacist. He was on a white supremacist watch list. This very same fella you see in front of you. Where's the reporting on Candace Owens on that? Why was this not on Fox News, Candace? You said that this one man, that no one attributed anything racial about what he did, compared to this was definitely a racially motivated incident, to where he decided to drive his car into a crowd of people. But let's continue.
Today was a very sad day for our great Commonwealth in the city of Charlottesville. We know there's now 3 fatalities today, in addition to many individuals who have been hurt.
Have you noticed this is the governor, and it was only reported to us that one person was killed that day, but it was 3 fatalities on this day. But who do they put front and center? No disrespect to the young lady that lost her life, but what about the other 2 people that were murdered? Because white nationalists decided they wanted to keep a statue of Robert E. Lee up for all the world to see. A statue of a born loser, a traitor against his country. And that's what they came to Charlottesville, West Virginia for. Wasn't racially motivated though. No, not this. They were just exercising their First Amendment rights.
And I have a message to all the white supremacists and the Nazis who came into Charlottesville today. Our message is plain and simple. Go home. You are not wanted in this great Commonwealth. Shame on you. You pretend that you're patriots.
Yeah, I guess that'll stop the average redneck from coming to your town with guns and rebel flags. Shame on you. Yeah, that'll stop them from coming in. How about this, Governor? When you come to my town, we will meet force with force. You're allowed to have peaceful demonstrations, but any force will be met with force. Y'all should be ashamed of yourself. That's really going to turn the white supremacists. Oh, we better go home. The governor mad at us. Come on now.
But you are anything but a patriot.
If you do not disperse immediately, you will be arrested.
And police are investigating a deadly shooting that took place outside.
Oh, Candace, I'm proving your argument to be 100% a farce. Because the last 3 people that I just talked about on this one that's coming up next, all these murders that they committed were tied to being a white supremacist because they did not like black people or they did not like brown people. So let's continue, Candace. Come on, Candace.
Of Boston over the weekend as a hate crime. The incident began Saturday afternoon in Winthrop, Massachusetts. Police say a 28-year-old white male carrying 2 handguns crashed a stolen truck into a building. He then fled on foot, shooting and killing 2 black people. Officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect, killing him. The district attorney said the gunman had written troubling white supremacist rhetoric and targeted the victims because they were black. Lisa Greshy from our Boston station reports.
James Harris Jackson is paraded before reporters, arrested for fatally stabbing a 66-year-old black man with a sword in New York.
Oh, my bad, ladies and gentlemen. Here comes a new white supremacist murderer. This one survived, though.
Street earlier in the week. getting himself caught on security cameras on the local news. He traveled from Baltimore to carry out the crime. According to the NYPD, chose New York as well as his victim to live with.
The reason why he picked New York is because it's the media capital, and he wanted to make a statement. His intentions were to come here to harm mailboxes, and we're very fortunate that it stopped at one, and it wasn't more.
The suspect described in.
Here we go again, folks. So far, I have completely debunked this Candace argument of white people are less violent than black people, and white people don't kill because of racial reasonings. Well, here, right here in front of you, and I'm not even done yet. And it didn't take me long, folks, to grab these clips. Really.
In a manifesto, how he came to embrace racism through online forums. Dean Reynolds spoke with someone who made that same descent into darkness, but came out of it.
Confederate flag.
Didn't even know that was there.
Open a certain box in Christian Picciolini's home.
There is a Nazi flag.
And the first things to pop out are painful reminders of his past.
It's funny how that memorabilia for him is now painful. But when a black person says that rebel flag is bothersome and painful, it reminds of us of a distant past of how we used to be treated as black folks in this country. We've blown it out of proportion. But a former skinhead can keep that as memorabilia because of what he used to be. That makes sense. He's reformed now. He's seen the error of his ways. Well, I'm one of them folks that believe a leopard don't change his spots. You are what you are. And just because you get on TV and say you didn't, or you don't, that don't mean you won't.
Artifacts of his days as a race-baiting skinhead.
You were a skinhead for how many years?
I was a neo-Nazi skinhead from 1987 until 1995, roughly from the time I was 14 years old until I was 21.
He says he and alleged Charleston shooter Dylan Roof might once have been kindred spirits.
Would you have applauded Dylan Roof?
I would have. I would have thought that this guy had the courage to speak for the rest of us and to do something.
Picciolini grew up the son of immigrants in a blue-collar suburb of Chicago.
I was standing here smoking a joint, and the guy walked up to me and he just said, "Don't you know that that's what the communists and the Jews want you to do to keep you docile?" And I was like infatuated by this power. He had a shaved head and boots and thin suspenders on, and I'd never seen anything like it. From that moment on, I wanted to be like that guy.
He liked the message and loved the music. That's Picciolini leading his old band, Final Solution.
The music spoke of unemployment, and it spoke of black-on-white crime. When I was told that the white race was being attacked from all sides and that minorities were to blame for all the problems that I was having, I bought in.
Back then.
But who's being radicalized, Candace? You just heard a confession from in air quotations, come on up with him, a former skinhead that said he was indoctrinated at a time that was a little bit more difficult to come because they had to do it one-on-one. Now with the internet, it's even easier to radicalize these young white men. So who's being radicalized, Candace? You heard it from the horse's mouth. This is how he was indoctrinated. This is what happened to him. This was what made him one day decided he hated black people. He was out smoking a joint. High, probably, because you know them white dudes got that good weed. Somebody came up to him in jeans, boots, and threw something at him and blew his mind. He had an epiphany that day. Yeah, all of my problems, the reason why I'm out here smoking weed in the middle of the day is because the black folks and the Chinese folks and the Asian folks and the refugees and the immigrants, they taking my jobs. Not that I'm responsible for it by out here being smoking weed in the middle of the day in my mama front yard, hanging out. It's their fault. You right.
Then recruitment was one kid at a time, but these days the radical fringe can easily work its way into anyone's home computer.
It's much easier because there's a layer of anonymity for people, so you can say almost anything you want.
Now, watching events unfold in Charleston, Picciolini hears echoes in the sentiments of Dylan Roof.
He could have literally torn pages out of my book and posted it online. The rhetoric is the same. Not everybody becomes a Dylan Roof. But I think that there are thousands of people like him across our country that eventually could be radicalized enough to cause as much damage as he did.
These days, Christian Picciolini tries to help others leave the skinhead movement just like he did, and Scott, he's co-founded a non-profit organization.
Notice when they say co-founded a non-profit organization, so now the government giving them money not to be racist anymore. Let that make sense. 501c, not to be a racist. Let that make sense. But again, if you don't delve into it, folks, if you don't look at this with a complete open mind, you'll miss subtle nuances. But you'll hear in our spaces, it's none of this is real. We're making all this up. You know, you hear one guy said his grandmother used to get turkeys from the Klan. I wonder if y'all still getting it. I wonder if that's still a tradition in West Virginia. Klans still go around the black folks bringing them turkeys on Thanksgiving, since it just passed. Should be up in recent memory. I ain't checked the YouTube files, but I don't think so. I don't think that happened this year anyway. Maybe due to COVID. I don't know. Somebody go over to ABL's channel and ask him if he got his turkey, or did he get a Christmas goose? But Candace is on Fox News saying how this one man, this deranged murderer that had a history of being a criminal, all of a sudden is the martyr for black people running up into your neighborhoods, murdering your firstborn, and doing it in blackface, clowning, yassabossing on Fox News.
Called Life After Hate.
Important insight.
Life after hate. Right. Now let's look at some of these stats here, folks. I should have put my glasses on. Let me pause this off here so I can try and make this a little bit bigger. Let me pause this. There we go, right here. Let me try and make this a little bit bigger with my glasses. I don't feel like moving to go get them, so y'all just have to bear with me. If y'all can see this chart that I have here, according to this, you'll see where I got it from. I forgot I can't see the name of the website at the top here, but you'll see that in this first column right here, it says the total murders of total crimes. It gives it by race, all races, then it breaks it down to white, breaks it down to black, American Indian, and Asian. I guess that's the four super groups, or the four super groups. If you go down to the second column and you look at what this is, murder, I think so. Again, I don't have my glasses on. Who's leading that category? Look for yourself. Who's leading these categories? Look at that, right, that I just highlighted. Look at those numbers. Who's winning when it comes to killing people? And this is as of 2019. I thought I could pull up 2021, but it only went to 2019. But as of 2 years ago, White people clearly murder more. But I got more. I like to come with the facts. Look at these numbers. Come on. Candace, I'm not a trained, I'm one of those folks that get up on news, and I don't have a whole team of folks that can go scoop this information up for you. But if it was this easy for me to do in a one-man band, I'm sure you could have paid some interns at Fox News to do this. Let's go some more here. Fact checks. Racial murder rates. Keep reading. Again, I don't have my glasses on. And of course, we all know who Reuters is. One of the respectable news articles. And people swear by Reuters. Okay, so here's what they did. Fact check them. Let's see some more. You can pause this later on if you want to look at it, or pause the screen and look at the numbers, the facts and figures. Let me see if I can make this. Where's my damn glasses? See, I should have been prepared. Anyway, folks. But you see what I'm trying to say? If it's this easy for me to debunk Candace Kundis, it should have been easier for anyone to get on to do this. But they allow her on Fox News to say this about black people with impunity. Read for yourself. I scrolled it up and down on the screen. I know this little old thing it's got in the way there, but look for it yourself. So you know this is articles I just went and pulled up. I didn't manipulate anything about it, because these are the articles that they'll pull up on us. These are the places that they'll say, well, according to Reuters. I tell you, in some places, folks, the most dangerous thing in white world is, like right here, a black man. A smart black man, I should say.
I want to say that to that point earlier that you said about PTSD, what did you say, post-black syndrome or something, which is akin to people in the military. Racial trauma, and you said when you saw these whips for, same with slavery, which you said is akin to PTSD of people that were in the military, and you said it's a similar thing that you experienced when you at first thought that people were being whipped. The Haitians were being whipped.
Imagery has an effect.
Imagery has an effect. I do want to also say, just like out of respect to the military men that have PTSD, they actually served in the war. You were not actually a slave. I find that to be a bit offensive.
Wait.
The last thing I want to say.
No.
The last thing I want to say.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that. The only place that you can get PTSD is if you served in the military. Maybe Candace Owens has never lived in the inner city where every day you hear gunfire. Every day you hear police sirens. Every day is a chance that you're walking down the street that you could be hit by a random bullet. Maybe she doesn't know about the history of some of the ghettos right here in the good old United States of America, where some kids really do have emotional, long-lasting emotional problems from where they grew up at and how they grew up. But according to Candace, if you didn't serve in the war, if you weren't in the military, there's no way that you could suffer from PTSD. But this is the kind of shit that they let her say over there on Fox News. But again, with impunity.
You absolutely, positively will not say that, and I will not allow that. I will not allow that to ride. I grew up
you don't have
in an
PTSD from
oppressive
slavery
and racist system.
Where were you
Slavery
whipped? Where were you
still
whipped at a
exists
horse whip?
under the 13th Amendment of the United States
With a law degree and no
Constitution.
education.
When you bash
And then they try to justify saying because he got a law degree, it's impossible for him to suffer any post-traumatic stress disorder. And the man clearly says, where I grew up at. If you go back and check this guy's history, he didn't, PhD or a law degree wasn't handed to him. He's one of the survivors of a rough neighborhood. But Candace Owens didn't. Whoever this Yassa boss is next to her tried to completely act like that's not a legitimate way to suffer. Can't be. No way.
People like Naomi Osaka who has mental issues. You bash people with mental illness. That's what you do. And you just
You're trying to spin the story here.
You bash people.
Oh, my bad, folks. I forgot to turn the damn mic on. Again, talking to myself. But here it is. How to overcome PTSD. And anywhere in that description down there, ladies and gentlemen, does it say that you can only be or struck by PTSD by being in the military? No, it does not. And I think some of these, whether you're white and you grew up in the inner city, whether you're Asian, you grew up in the inner city, whether you're black and you grew up in the inner city, if you grew up around an environment that's similar to a war zone, you're going to be affected. That's going to hit your mental psychic. That know that every day that you possibly walk out the door, you could get hit by a stray bullet, or you could be robbed, or you could be mugged, or you could be raped, or you could get your car jacked. In Chicago, that was a thing for a minute. Drive down the street, hit a stoplight, next thing you know, niggas jumping up from all over the place. They ain't washing your windshields no more. They stealing your car. And if you act too much like you don't want to get it, you might get a cap popped on you. You know what this is. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. Come on, Candace Owens. I'm tired of talking to you and about you. Can't do it no more. Let's move on. Tell me I'm wrong. Check out this next thing. Now, Candace, you say a lot of things about black people in general, that we should pull ourselves by the bootstraps, that a lot of things that we say is made up. So I'm going to tell you something about, I know that's in history, that but not too many people talk about. I like bringing out stuff like this, especially when somebody pissed me off, because I really dig a little deeper. I just don't want to bring you some main shit. Everybody heard about the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. But have you heard about the Elaine massacre? Candace Owens. Have you heard about that? No? Let me hip you to it.
It was called the Red Summer of 1919, named for the blood that ran through America's cities during months of racial unrest. African-American soldiers had returned home from the Great War, World War I, to a country still teeming with discrimination. And in their quest for civil rights, tensions for the bloodshed, the violence there, lynch mobs, torture, indiscriminate murder, was so horrific it would in Arkansas would become their own country. 350,000 African-American soldiers enlisted to serve. But while they fought for democracy abroad, their own country, America, was still not willing to see them as equal.
White supremacy